Straight ahead on 12 News, a local pastor with a day to call her own. What she did to have not one, but two cities declare a day in her honor. Plus, a young Maple Grove man dies of a heroin overdose, leading to criminal charges now filed against the suspected drug dealers. But first, a hit-and-run case that left a Brooklyn Park man dead.
It's very hard to fathom that someone could be involved in this and not know they hit somebody.
12 News starts right now. Hello and thanks for joining us. A Brooklyn Park man is dead after at least one driver hit him and fled the scene.
The incident happened in the southbound lane of Highway 252 at 73rd Avenue North. And that is where 12 News reporter Sonia Goins joins us now with more information. Sonia?
Now, Mike and Alex, 61-year-old Meshu Lama was killed as he tried to cross over a busy 252. He didn't live too far from here. I talked to his family. They said he had just moved here from Ethiopia about 3 years ago. They said he was on his way to work when he was hit. Meshu Lama lived in this Brooklyn Park home with his son and family. Today, friends gathered to pay their respects. They didn't want to go on camera because they're grieving and still notifying family members.
It's a tragedy, obviously.
The accident happened just before 7 Tuesday night. The State Patrol says Lama was wearing dark-colored clothing and crossing against the light on Highway 252 when he was hit.
According to witnesses, the light was green for traffic on 252 and the pedestrian was crossing against the red light.
People who live in this area say Highway 252 is busy
Highway 252.
and very hard to cross,
Walk sign is on to cross.
even when you obey the traffic laws.
Yeah, you don't have time as a pedestrian to walk across. You have to run across.
10,
And then half the time you only get halfway across.
7.
It's very short.
Meanwhile, investigators are still trying to determine if Lama was hit by more than one vehicle.
We have recovered some evidence from the scene we're processing and using as part of the investigation to try to determine the identity or the make and model of the vehicle.
Officials are asking for the driver or drivers who hit Lama to come forward.
It's very hard to fathom that someone could be involved in this and not know they hit somebody or something happened.
Now, Mike and Alex, the State Patrol is looking for either a dark-colored SUV or a red-colored SUV or a minivan. If you have any information, please give them a call. Also worth noting, we actually time the crosswalk. It takes about 35 seconds to get across. People say that's just not enough time to get across. The City of Brooklyn Center has also hired an engineer to study the stretch of 252. They said it's too dangerous. In Brooklyn Center, Sonia Goins, 12 News.
All right, Sonia, thanks a lot. Two men could each face 25 years behind bars for their role in the death of a Maple Grove man who overdosed on heroin.
Tragically, we see way too much of this in our communities. People who get hooked on pharmaceutical drugs or other things turn to heroin because it's a cheaper alternative. The problem is heroin is deadly.
Hennepin County Attorney Mike Freeman joined Maple Grove Police Chief Eric Werner to announce third-degree murder charges against 29-year-old James Bucci, an alleged drug dealer from Minneapolis, and 22-year-old Anthony Simons of Brooklyn Park. Investigators say a 21-year-old Maple Grove man was found dead last July inside his home. An autopsy revealed he died of a heroin overdose. Prosecutors say Simons provided the man with $50 worth of heroin that Simons bought from Bucci. Authorities hope to send a statement with these charges.
We're going to hold those accountable that are providing this drug and bringing it into our communities. We have safe communities and we're trying to essentially eliminate the supply aspect of it.
Maple Grove police say prescription drugs act as a gateway to heroin. They encourage families in the Northwest Metro to dispose of those drugs at the Hennepin County Sheriff's Office in Brooklyn Park.
Well, today we learned a Maple Grove medical device company will lose out on state funds following criminal charges filed last week against the company and its CEO. Vascular Solutions was in the running for an $800,000 subsidy to expand operations in Maple Grove. Without the subsidy, it's unclear if the company's nearly $9 million expansion plan will change. Last week, Vascular Solutions and CEO Howard Root were indicted on charges of conspiring to sell a varicose vein treatment device for unapproved medical uses. The company plans to fight the charges.
The Wayzata School District is receiving accolades for using technology in the classroom. 3 years ago, the district started a plan for every student to have access to an iPad. Because of that initiative, Superintendent Chase Anderson was one of 117 top school leaders selected to visit the White House today and participate in the first ever National Connected Superintendent Summit. These superintendents are expected to share information about how to best use technology in the classroom.
And a Plymouth man is trying to raise awareness about child sex abuse. Author Sumi Mukherjee has written a book on the topic called Father Figure. He addressed an audience Tuesday night at the Brookdale Library. The issue is personal to Mukherjee. He told the audience how a convicted child molester dated one of his friends and abused her 2 daughters.
I still had images in my mind of that creep trying to put his hands on these 2 girls. He's in his 40s, they're 13 and 10. Started with an online dating.
Mukherjee says single moms who are dating should take a lot of time getting to know their partner before letting children be around that person.
When it comes to issues of discrimination or seeing that equal employment opportunities exist on state contracts, Minnesota's Department of Human Rights is involved. The state's Human Rights Commissioner, Kevin Lindsay, made a stop in Brooklyn Park to talk about the work of his department. Brooklyn Park has its own Human Rights Commission at the city level, and the commissioner says they're a valuable part of the larger equation.
There are a lot of smaller human rights departments that are doing great work facilitating conversations around the state to ensure that people have opportunity to fully participate in our democracy. So I really appreciate the work of the local human rights department here in helping that become a reality in Minnesota.
The commissioner said he makes stops at cities around the state to get a feel for and hear some of the issues that are important to each community. It is not often someone gets a day named for them, let alone have that happen in 2 cities.
Oh, that's what happened to a pastor in Brooklyn Center and in Brooklyn Park. Today is Reverend Rachel McIver Morey Day, and both cities are recognizing her work on youth homelessness.
We're in the No Hassles Youth Food Shelf.
A special food shelf for youth was the first step in addressing suburban youth homelessness, a need Reverend Rachel McIver Morey didn't even know existed when she worked to start a multicultural church.
The fact that we had so many kids who didn't have a safe and stable place to sleep at night. The numbers had just skyrocketed after the Great Recession in 2008 and the huge housing crisis.
The food shelf, which also offers clothing and other basics,
hygiene products over here,
opened 5 months after Pastor Morey recruited the YMCA, churches, and SEEP.
Things just don't happen like that. It just did. It was the most beautiful thing I've ever seen in my life.
She says homeless youth hanging out along Brooklyn Boulevard is something you just don't see, but it didn't take her long to find out the scope of the problem.
Some of the earliest phone calls I got returned were from schools and begging for help, saying, I've got girls who are pregnant and kicked out tonight, can you help us?
The next step was to expand a host home program where volunteers take in homeless youth for at least 6 months.
Food shelf, host homes, now what? What about getting a safe house for these kids established? What would that look like? How would we do it? How much would it cost?
That was March of 2013. 17 months later, ground was broken on an emergency homeless shelter for kids. Now, a 12-bed shelter is set to open in January.
August of 2014, we broke ground. So in housing terms, in community project terms, we're talking lightning speed. I mean, that just doesn't happen.
Do hereby proclaim November 19th, 2014 to be Reverend Rachel McIver Morey Day in the city of Brooklyn
In both
Park.
Brooklyns, Morey is getting credit for uniting churches, government, and other community members. She says it's a team effort.
If you have a faith community and a civic governance that are rock solid, lockstep in working together on that, that's exciting to me about what could happen next.
Reverend Morey, though, is leaving the Northwest Metro to focus attention on a church in South Minneapolis and also to spend more time with her family. And Family of God Church in Brooklyn Park is putting on a play to raise money for the youth homeless shelter. You can see a production of Thornton Wilder's Our Town this Thursday through Saturday at 7 p.m. and on Sunday at 2 p.m. No ticket is required, but donations will be taken. Well, coming up, a medical device mega merger, the Medtronic Covidien deal impacts both local employees and shareholders. We'll break down the impact next.
And then later in sports, the Breck girls hockey team continues to play well early this season. We catch up with the Mustangs a little bit later.
But first, still waiting for the warm-up. Thursday remains frigid with wind chills below zero.
Big changes could be coming to Golden Valley's border.
A Florida developer is proposing 2 office towers, a hotel, and 2 apartment buildings at the southwest corner of I-394 and Highway 100. That's near the shops at West End Shopping Center. The large-scale project would require approval of both the Golden Valley and St. Louis Park City Councils. A Minnesota medical device company, Medtronic, said this week that they plan to go through with a deal to buy Ireland-based Covidien and move operations overseas.
Covidien has operations in Plymouth, and the acquisition could help Medtronic avoid U.S. corporate taxes, but shareholders could take a hit. Reporter Shannon Slatton explains what shareholders need to know.
Medtronic announced in October that they expect the merger to take place in 2015. We spoke with the Wealth Enhancement Group in Plymouth, who says this is something they are talking about with clients on a weekly basis.
Medtronic shareholders are going to have what's called an exchange of shares when this inversion occurs. So what that means is their current shares are going to be exchanged for shares in a new company, an Irish-based company called Medtronic PLC. And when that happens, it's going to generate a tax liability for any gain that they've had in the shares. So that would be from the time that they purchased the shares, their cost, to what it's worth right now. They're going to pay tax on that gain.
The tax Brian is referring to could be as small as 10%, but it could be as great as nearly 40%. So depending upon what kind of account you have, there are steps you can take to save you money.
We've been talking to a lot of clients over time, discussing these strategies, because once again, each strategy is going to be unique how it applies to each person.
Some strategies include donating shares to charities or spreading out your gains. The important thing to remember, Mike and Alex, is to talk to a financial advisor now to determine what steps of action you need to take.
All right,
Thank
thanks
you.
a lot, Shannon. Coming up, a day a Brooklyn Park educator calls the highlight of her career.
But first in sports, the Totino-Grace football team gets set to face Eden Prairie in the Prep Bowl. John Jacobson has that and more when we come back.
Now called 6A.
Well, John Jacobson with sports now. It might be one of the first bowl games of the bowl season, right?
Yes.
The Prep Bowl coming up this week, just a couple of days now.
A cold Prep Bowl like it's been in the last week, but they'll be ready. And then if you're still playing football, you're excited no matter what the weather's like. 2 of the winningest football programs in the state go head-to-head Friday in the Class 6A championship at the Prep Bowl when Totino-Grace meets Eden Prairie. As Jay Wilcox reports, Totino-Grace is hoping to finish off a great late-season run.
Totino-Grace has won a lot of championships, 9 of them in all, but never in the biggest class, now called 6A. So it is special to have a chance to make history.
When Coach just came up to us and told us, like, we're going to be bumping up to 6A, we were just excited. We didn't look at it as a really downgrade at all. We were just like, okay, now we finally get to play with the big boys. We're really excited about it. And so we knew we had the players and the coaches to get to the point we are today.
The Eagles, who are playing more sophomores than they ever have proven to be very resilient at playoff time. 13 and 14-point deficits against Mounds View and Lakeville North the past 2 rounds have been overcome.
Well, we've had a lot of practice at it. We've been behind in 7 games, so I don't think that's necessarily by design that we want to get behind, but our guys are resilient, and I really appreciate and like the way that they respond. They're composed.
This matchup against an Eden Prairie team that, like Grace's, isn't as dominant as some past squads gives Grace a rare opportunity as a clear underdog. It's kind of nice.
There's no question we're the underdogs. You know, they're the 3-time reigning champion. They're on, you know, it's a premier program in the state without anybody really coming close and comparing to them. So we've got a ton of respect for them.
They're obviously a great team. We respect them, but that doesn't mean we're not going to play 100%. We're going to go full head of steam. We're going to take them just like any other team, and it's going to be a fun game.
Every year we've been totally motivated to play them. Every year we've been the underdog, and we know we're the underdog again, but that just motivates us even more.
They've answered every challenge in the postseason. Now Totino-Grace wants to finish the job. Jay Wilcox, 12 Sports.
The Totino-Grace Eagles and Eden Prairie Eagles meet at 7 o'clock Friday night at TCF Bank Stadium for the 6A title. Breck's girls hockey team is off to a great start. The Mustangs won their first 3 games by shutout and were skating for their 4th win against traditional girls hockey power South St. Paul Tuesday night. First period, and the Mustangs Grace Zumwinkle with a shot that hits traffic. Gabrielle Billings snaps home the rebound, and Breck leads 1-0. Just over 2 minutes later, Zumwinkle takes the pass and blasts a shot home from the top of the circle. And it's 2-0 Breck after 1. Up 3-0 in the second period. Zumwinkle with a pass to Claire Mancheski. Her shot tipped in by number 44, Leah Schwartzman. And Breck leads at 4-0 through 2 periods. The Mustangs give up their first goal of the season in the third period, but they score 2 more themselves, including this one by Kendall Williamson on the rebound. Breck is now 4-0. They win at 6-1 and host War Road on Friday night. Also in girls hockey, Hopkins hosted Orono. The Royals get on the board. Grace Bazal buries the slap shot for a 1-0 lead, 3:09 into the game. Still in the first period, Hopkins crashes the net, and freshman Kylie Hanley scores to make it 2-0 Royals. Same score in the third period, and Orono's Brooklyn Duffy cuts the lead in half with a breakaway goal for the Spartans. But Hopkins gets an insurance goal when Rachel St. Clair deflects in Gretchen Patterson's shot. The Royals win 3-1, and they are now 4-1 on the season. And that's a look at sports for today.
All right, thanks a lot, John. Up next, flowers, a check, and a heap of praise.
The day a Brooklyn Park educator will never forget when we come back. Finally, someone described her as a real live certifiable rock star.
And that person is none other than Cindy Brosey. Brosey works with special education students at Edgewood Education Center in Brooklyn Park. Today, she was named Education Support Professional of the Year by Education Minnesota. Brosey calls the honor the highlight of her 21-year career in education. And for the honor, Brosey receives an iPad and a $1,000 check. She will also represent Minnesota as a nominee for National Education Support Professional of the Year. So congratulations to her.
Absolutely, and in addition to that, she looked like a standing ovation there at the same time.
That does it for us. Thanks so much for joining us.
Stay with us. Community Corner is up next, and we'll see you again tomorrow.